Sabbath. It's a beautiful day, and it's great. We're a very full church today, and welcome to. It's already been a welcome to the New South Wales church members who are here. But I also want to extend my invitation to the Thanksgiving Day in November to New South Wales Church too. All right. So if you can make New South Wales Church, thank you. If you can make it, you're more than welcome to come, each and every one of you. Right? We're all family, we're all celebrating, we're all worshiping together, and all need to get to know each other more. All right, today's sermon is actually, it's taken from last week. Me and Wanda was up, I'm going to put this down a little bit farther, and see if that works. Me and Wanda are up being trained in a new program that is new to this division anyways. It's Adventist Recovery Ministries, looking at the addictions in the world, the people that have addictions, and how that we can help people with addictions. And I guess I came back a little bit inspired about this program, and I just want to share a little bit about the fact that most of us probably have some inclinations to addictions. And this program, we might actually start some training for this, and I'll talk about this a little bit at the end of the sermon, but the name of the sermon is Culling a Monkey. Culling a Monkey. Getting rid of those monkeys on our back. Have you heard, are you familiar with the phrase, the monkey on your back? Just can't get rid of that monkey? It's an addict's phrase, when you got something on your back, he's in control of you, and you just can't get him off your back. So ever since the fall of man, we've had the devil has been attacking us, hasn't he? He's been attacking things like the Sabbath. He attacks things because that's our relationship with God, where the one day a week, he wants us to make sure we come together and just put everything aside and just connect with God. Of course, he wants us to connect with him all week long, but Sabbath is special, and the devil's been attacking that. Families are special, relationships, marriages, and the devil's attacking those things. Well, he's also attacking in our personal lives. Obviously, we all know the battles and struggles we go through, but addictions is one of those ways. And I would dare say most of us, if maybe not all of us, somebody up there last week actually challenged us. He thought that every one of us would have an addiction somewhere in our lives. We think of addictions as the junkie or whatever that shoots up, or the alcoholic, or the smoker that smokes 3 packs a day, whatever the case might be. But there's so many other addictions in life, isn't there? Sports fans, I've been addicted to sports, and I have to kind of stay away from it a little bit because I know I'll get wrapped up into those things. Sports, food. Oh, there's another one because we got to eat it all day, and it tastes so delicious. Food, gaming, gaming and entertainment, and gambling, all kinds. There's many that we're around all the time, We might not be around the gambling all the time, but the gaming, the entertainment, these kinds of things. Phones. For the younger generations, it can be a real struggle. Even the older generations can really get addicted to it. Did you know that 50%, they did a survey of the young people, 50% of them admitted they were addicted to their phones and to their media, their social media. Some estimate that 90% demonstrate some form of codependency. 9%. This is just one person's ideas, I guess, but codependency, that we're not, our value is not in ourselves, and we find value in others and that, and it's one of those hang-ups that we can find ourselves being in there. So workaholics is another one. We're all told we have to work hard to make a living, right? And we find our value in the working sometimes. The addiction comes in, though, when you can't control it, right? When it's controlling you. When it has you, it has it has a grip on you, and that's why we say the monkey on the back has a grip on you. And you might say, okay, I figured out that there's a better way to do life and put this aside, but it's a struggle, and it's hard to do it. Or if you find it as a comfort, instead of God should be our comfort, right? But you find this is a need in your life to comfort you to get through life. This is what also is referred to as addiction. But as I mentioned, there's so many ways, and that's the tip of the iceberg. There's so many things that could find these places in our lives. Well, unfortunately, in this day and age, one of the biggest ones is internet porn, unfortunately. And it probably attacks guys more than others. Some say there's one survey, it was done in the States. I imagine that Australia is similar, but over 50% of the people, mostly guys, I imagine, guys are addicted to internet porn or use it way too much. Well, guys, we know that. We know the Bible, right? Any usage is a bad usage if you want to follow Jesus. He says if you even look at a woman in the wrong way, you're committing adultery. If you look at her with lust in your eyes. So porn is bad, but it's 50%. That's awful. I mean, it is awful, but I feel sorry for those who are into it. It's an addiction. It's hard. It's very, very hard to get through. But 35% of all downloads in the world, 35% of every download in the world that happens is porn related. That just shows you how big this problem is. So Satan is really trying to get us with addictions, no matter what it is. Any kind of addiction, he wants to get a hold of us and take control of us and get our minds off where the purity and where it should be. Of course, addictions, as I mentioned earlier, it takes our trust and relationship away from God, and we're looking for other things to satisfy our needs. That's probably one of the biggest problems. Did Samson have an addiction, guys? Or ladies, guys and ladies? Let's look at Samson a little bit. It's found in Judges. Judges chapter 13 is where we find Samson coming into play. I'm going to go through a narrative of it, but we'll stop at a verse here and a verse there, just to connect to see what's up with, or get a little Bible verse out of it, sorry. In chapter 13, though, we right off the bat, verse 1, we see the context. It says, "Again the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hand of the Philistines for 40 years." Again, so it's a pattern they were in. They would deliver it into the hand of the enemy, and then we'd have a deliverer come up, a prophet would come up and deliver them from the enemy. And then again, they would go back, and then again, they would be delivered again and again and again. Well, here we have, again, they're in the hands of the Philistines, but God has brought a deliverer, and his name will be Samson. An angel comes to Samson's mother and says, you will have a child, and you'll name him Samson. And she told him that there's certain things that this child must do or not do. And actually, in verse 13, I think it is, or verse 12. In verse 12, the father comes to this angel and wants to know specifically, how do I raise this child? What is it you want us to do with this child? It's supposed to be a special child. And it says, Manoah said, "Now let your words come to pass. What will be the boy's rule of life and his work?" And the angel goes on to say, okay, don't touch any alcohol, no alcohol, or even any grape juice. Don't even get close to it. It might be old grape juice and be fermented. We don't want touching that stuff at all. And don't cut the hair. This is the rituals of the Nazarites, or Nazarenes, I should say. Nazarenes, that the people were set apart, set aside to do a special work for God. And you can actually do that on your own. The Nazarenes could make a choice to do a vow and to become a Nazarene for a certain amount of time. But this man, though, Samson, he was called by God for his whole life to never touch his hair, to cut his hair, or never ever to touch grape juice. Not even, as I said, he didn't want to make sure there's no fermented drink going in this man at all. He's to be set apart from everyone else. So we started out with a pretty good situation, I guess, in actually verse 25, after the boy was born in verse 24, but verse 25 says, the Spirit of the Lord began to move upon him at Mahana, Dan, between Zorah and Estella. So the Spirit of the Lord began to move upon him. He started off with a pretty good life. I guess you might want to say that he was in, he had a lot of things going for him, right? His chances of getting a successful life are pretty good. First of all, he had parents that wanted to know the Lord's will for this child. They wanted to know how to raise this child. They wanted the best for this child. They wanted the Lord's will for this child to be done. You can't get any better than that from parents, right? Amen? If you're a child, that's what we want our parents to be like. And then we see the Spirit of the Lord is upon him and moving on him. This man, you got to figure this man is going to be successful in life. You would figure that very, very well. You would think you would be the consensus, or I guess the obvious thing. But look at chapter 14. We see a little turn of events. As he's older now, he's grown up, obviously, he's a man now. Now Samson went down to Timnah and saw a woman in Timnah of the daughters of the Philistines. So he went up and told his father and mother, saying, I have seen a woman in Timnah of the daughters of the Philistines. Now therefore get her for me as a wife. Okay. We're starting to see signs of a little bit of dysfunctionality, maybe a little bit of problems here. As the Bible is in Deuteronomy chapter 7, he tells Deuteronomy 7 verses 3 and 4, God gave explicit details, explicit instruction to his people, men and women, not to marry somebody that's of a different religion or a different faith, because likely they can draw you away from their faith, draw you away from your understanding of God. Doesn't happen every time, but that's what God he gave his instructions. So you would figure that a man that was born by this situation where an angel came and said, this is a man of God, he's got certain his rule of life is to be set apart, to be a follower of God, that he wouldn't be wanting to go against God's word and be looking for a woman out of the faith that might or tear down his faith. But he did. He did. So his parents, being good parents, obviously they came back to him and said, come on, buddy. Come on, Samson. Can't you find somebody of our people, that has the same faith? Yeah, can't you find somebody of our own people? There's lots of us. Just have a look around. And his response, though, in verse 4 or 3 or 4, he comes back to him and says, at the end of verse 3, get her for me, for she pleases me well. Oh. And the parents jumped. And the parents went and got her. That shows us a little bit of dysfunctionality in that parents, in those family, doesn't it? Maybe a little bit of spoiledness by Samson. Maybe everything he wanted, I don't know, who knows. Maybe they felt this was God's child, a chosen man from God. We're going to just give him whatever he needs. But so when he got older, he expected to get whatever he wanted. Get whatever he wanted. And when he didn't get what he wanted, he was angry. He says, go get her now. And they did. They went right ahead and went and got her. There's another term for that. It's called that Samson was going through. It was not only maybe he was a little bit spoiled, but there's a little bit of definitely this feeling of delayed gratification. Delayed gratification. This is one of those things. Hey, buddy, how are you? You're having some delayed gratification. You don't want to wait until after church. Huh? That's we in this day and age, I guess it's really hard to find this delayed gratification to wait. You know, it's like, and we all have it in us, but we see young people especially, you know, as they live for the moment, And if they whatever is good or pleases them in the moment, that's what matters. They don't look beyond the moment. They can't look in the future and say, okay, I'll be benefited if I wait on this thing, or if I'll think about it a little bit more, I'll be benefited. I just want my gratification right now. That's a sure sign of addiction. If somebody who has that mentality in their mind, if they've grown up with it all their life, it's so easy then to fall into addictions. Because they don't necessarily want to be able to think their way through their thoughts and their desires, and they just fall right into it. But Samson definitely had this issue in his life, and it led to difficult troubles, many troubles. So he gets married. He gets the woman. He marries her. Everything's going to be great, right? He's got the woman of his dreams. Now he's going to marry her, and they have a big celebration. A week-long celebration, as they do in those days and those ages, and Samson decides that he wants to start a little bit of trouble. But just clear your minds there too. If you've been reading down there, you might see that actually the Bible even says that that the Lord brought this upon him, seeking an occasion to move against the Philistines. For the time of the Philistines of dominion over Israel. Excuse me, I'm trying to read that and think at the same time sometimes. Yeah. But as I brought up in Deuteronomy here, the Lord could have had many, many other ways to deliver his people. He didn't have to go through this step. What I read in those verses is God takes even our worst acts, even our bad acts, and he makes good things come out of them. When we make mistakes, we fall into a mistake like this, or something worse, or something less, God can take those acts and he can make something good come out of those things. There was a real bad situation that came out of this one, but as we read in that, quickly ran over that verse, God was going to take that situation and deliver his people from the Philistines. The bad situation happened though is they're having their festival, and Samson, he challenges some people with some very, very difficult riddle that no one can answer. And so they come back to the wife and they say, we can't answer these things. He challenges, they're going to take all of our robes, our 30 robes, give us the answer. So the wife finally gets the answer out of Samson, gives it to these people. They tell him the answer to the riddle, and he gets all angry. Obviously, he goes down and he takes care of business in a way that probably shouldn't have been taken care of, comes back, and leaves. He's angry at his wife, new wife, only a few days, and he's angry. He leaves. He comes back several months later and he says, hey, I want my wife back. By this time, though, the father had given the wife to his best mate, actually, the best man of the wedding. And now he says, well, I can't do that now. So again, he's angry, right? So he goes out and torches all the fields around the area in Palestine, or in Philistines area. Now the Philistines get angry and they come and they torch the wife's house, the father's house, and kill them all. Disaster. Just total disaster out of this thing. Again, so Samson gets angry again. He starts causing more problems. But we see another issue, though, that comes up again with his addiction. And it's down in, I'll flip this over, chapter 16, verse 1. So after that mess works out again, we find them, things have cooled down a bit. Chapter 16, verse 1. Now Samson went to Gaza and saw a harlot there and went into her. Another problem arises, right? After he has his way with her, then they try to catch him, and he shows his strength by pulling off the gates of the city and running up to the top of the hill. But then we find just shortly after that, he comes into connection with this lady named Delilah. And you've probably heard of Delilah, but she's a Philistine woman who is very attractive, and it pleases him again, and he starts hanging out with her a lot. Well, while he's hanging out with her, the Philistines figured out that, hey, this might be a way to Samson, because we can't get him anywhere else. He's already killed 1,000 of our people with a jawbone of an ass. And how can we get to him? Maybe we get to him through Delilah. So they come to Delilah. Delilah asks Samson now, maybe he thinks he's in a point of weakness or whatever, tell me what your strength is. So Samson gives her 3 different reasons. First reason, I forgot exactly which one it was. It was maybe braiding up the hair or new ropes, or I think there were 7 strands of something around him. But he gives her 3 different reasons for it that were not true. And then, so while he's sleeping, she does these reasons. She ties him up, and then she says, awake, the Philistines are here. And he gives up and he breaks those things free. And where are they at, you know? Does that 3 times. Deceives him, or he tries to take advantage of him 3 times. And then she comes back the 4th time. And the 4th time, though, she actually, verses 15 and 16, the gall of this woman, right? The gall of this woman. So what she says here in verses 15 and 16 to Samson, she says, she said to him, how can you say I love you when your heart is not with me? You have mocked me these 3 times and have not told me where your great strength lies. And it came to pass when she pestered him daily with her words and pressed him so that his soul was vexed to death. Wow. She betrays him 3 times. Betrays him right out 3 times. And he keeps coming back to her. Is that addiction? Keeps coming back, and then he knows that, okay, if he's done it 3 times, I imagine if I tell her the truth, it's going to happen again, and I'm going to get in big trouble, right? You'd think that would be his knowledge. But he was so vexed, he was so pressured by her, that he says, okay, I do love you. I have so much lust for you, I guess is probably what I would say. I'll tell you. Just give me what I want right now. Gratification, instant gratification. And he tells her. We know the rest of the story. If you haven't read it, read the rest of the story. The Philistines come in. Well, the hair is cut, right? That was the strength of Samson, was do never cut. God said never cut the hair, and the strength was in the hair. Symbolism of obedience to Christ, right? I don't believe there was strength in that hair. It was a symbolism of his heart being saying, I'm going to do what you say, God. And when that hair was cut, it was like, I let my guard down. I'm not doing what God says anymore. Strength was gone. Strength was gone. The Philistines take him. They gouge out his eyes. They put him in prison, make him work and all that. The rest of the story, to just cap off the rest of the story, his hair grows back. I imagine he confessed and he repented. And he got his strength back, and he was able to spread the pillars of the Colosseum and did the Philistines a lot of damage. But you see this man who is definitely addicted. He has no control over the situation. He has no control over his mind, or in this situation anyways, or in this desire of his. The monkey is on his back, big time. God did still use him though. God did bless him. But there was a lot of hurt that went through that. It could have been done in so many better ways. You look at all these other judges, Deborah, and so many of these other ones, Micah. God could have done it so much better if he was follow God. Addictions hurt us. But as I started out this sermon, many of us have them. It's a fact of life, and for many of us. But God doesn't want us to have them. There's better ways of doing life, right? But if you're in addiction, I tell you what, I gave my little testimony there that one Friday night, but I've been through a lot of addictions. There's better ways to doing life. John 8, verse 36 tells us that he can give us freedom. Jesus, how we can get freedom. John 8, 36 says, if the Son makes you free, you shall be free indeed. Jesus can get that monkey off our back, whatever it is. If we put our trust in him, if we go to him for our strength, if our desires, our needs are in him, then he will remove the monkeys off our back. He's the Savior of not only salvation, not only of eternal life, he gives us eternal life, but this day and age right now, he gives us freedom. And he's there to give us freedom if we ask for it, if we look to him. Ecclesiastes 4, verse 12, though, also says, though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. One overpowered by these addictions or whatever life is, one can be overpowered pretty easily. But with two, it's not easily broken, or two can defend themselves. Who's the second person then? Who's the second? Jesus. God. We need God. We can be overpowered very easily if we do it on our own. But if we have God involved with it, it's a totally different situation, and we can defend. He can defend us against that what's trying to attack us. But then the third, cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. We need each other too. We need a brother or a sister to go through life with us, to help us through these things. To help us through these things. He didn't just give us call us in to be a family of God and say, hey, you go working on your own. He says, no, you got me, but you also got brothers and sisters to help you with this thing. And so I guess that brings us into where just a little bit of advertisement about that program. It's called the Journey to Wholeness program. It's a Adventist Recovery Ministries. And it's a Christ-centered 12-step program. So if you haven't heard of the 12-step program, it's a program about learning to trust in a higher power. And AA and NA and a lot of other programs use this. But this one's Christ-centered. So it has lots of workbooks that bring you to Christ, uses Steps to Christ, a book that goes along with it. And the 12-step program, I'm going to tell you just a little bit of testimony about me. I've mentioned to you that I have had lots of addictions, but the 12-step program through AA actually brought me to God. Realizing that there is a higher power out there. There's a lot of people that have addictions outside of this church, out there in the community, that are addicted and they have no clue how to get help. Whether you believe in 12-step program or not, it is God-centered, especially if you bring in God, God and not just any higher power you want to. If you make it Christ-centered, it helps you reflect on life, reflect on your situation, and turn things over to God. And that's what we try to do in this church, in our walk. So I'm looking forward to this this ministry. We might start something in the church or in a community center next year. But I'm looking for actually people then who would be interested in learning and be in training to be a co-facilitator with me. So I'm happy to facilitate a group, but there's times I'll be gone, and I might need somebody to sit in my place. So if anyone is would like to be trained in this area, if you'd like to be a co-facilitator, you don't have to have addictions, let's say. You don't have to be a drug addict or alcoholic or smoker. You just have to have a passion for people and want to help them. So if anyone has that desire, please let me know. We're going to probably have some training coming up here real soon. But guys, to close this sermon now, the only way to freedom is through Jesus Christ. Huh? And He came to give us life and life more abundantly. He came to give us freedom, and He knows that each and every one of us that's in this world of sin is if they don't have tendencies of addictions, or if they're not in a real bad addiction right now, they have tendencies of it and there are likelihoods of it. So we all need each other. If you have any difficulties, please help each other. And by the way, this journey to wholeness is totally anonymous too. And we need to keep stuff like this between each other. If somebody's helping out somebody else, keep it to yourself. Keep it anonymous.